everyone, it's Christina of CraftyPaws. I'm here to share with you guys another Copic coloring video. This is for skin coloring and eye coloring. I'm not an expert at Copic coloring by any means, but I thought I would share with you guys my kind of go-to color combinations for skin. And for this first little cutie from the greeting farm, I am putting down a base coat of a light skin tone. This could be an E51 or an E00, and I'm just putting down a basic coat of this lighter skin tone all over her skin. Now I'm going to take a blue violet. This is kind of an odd color for an undertone, but everywhere there's a shadowed area along underneath her bangs, at the sides of her face, I'm using a BV00. Sometimes I use a BV000, sometimes I'll use a violet, a really pale like V01. But this violet undertone, when you cover it up again with another skin tone color, really gives a more realistic color tone. Now I'm going in with a darker skin tone. This could be a E53 or an E11 or an E21. Those are all slightly darker skin tones, and I cover up all the areas that have that violet undertone, and it makes the violet color kind of be a more realistic shadowed skin tone. Now I'm going in with a slightly paler skin tone, and this is to help connect the shadowed areas with the lightest areas. So again, I might choose an E21. That's one of my favorite kind of mid-tone skin colors, and it helps connect the darker skin tone. I think the earlier one that I used was actually an E11. And now I'm going in and adding some blush. My go-to blush color is an R20. And I bring it in all the way from the sides of her face, underneath her eye. Now this eye, I'm trying to leave some space to leave the sclera or white portion of the eye. So you see a big gap between where the pupil is and where that blush was. And now I'm going in with the light skin tone again. This is an E51, I believe, or maybe an E21, I'm not sure, but that is the color that I use to kind of blend out the colors together, the shaded areas that I'm reinforcing again with the, I believe that's an E11, and I'm going over the top again of all of these areas that have the shadowing. And now I'm connecting the darkest areas with the lightest areas, and I'm going over top here with an E21. If you want a paler skin tone, you could use the lightest skin tone again. You could use the E51 or the E00. And I'm just giving you all these alternative color combinations because there's no one right color, right, for skin tone.
I've drawn up 4 different style of eyes that are common in stamped images, a little bit larger so that you can get a better view of how I color up these different styles of eyes. This first eye over here on the upper left is a very stylized eye, and this is an example of where you'd find an eye like that. This is from the Greeting Farm stamp set Sweet and Toxic, and you can see that there's a heavy eyeliner, eyelashes, top and bottom, and a tiny pupil. That would be that style of eye. And it gives you a lot of space so that you can actually color up the iris. That's the colored part of the eye. And you just want to make sure that you pick a color that's kind of a medium tone, and you go all around that pupil, that black center area. Then I like to take a slightly darker hue. So that first one was a B95, and I'm going to take a B99 and just draw little tiny hash marks. That's just to get that eye speckling color on the iris. And I generally color the top half of that iris area completely because of the cast shadow that would come from the eyelid. And then this style of eye is very common in a lot of the Greeting Farm images, like I've been coloring up recently for my hair coloring series. It's got a very stylized upper eyelash, but no lower eyelash, and sometimes I draw one in, but the pupil is very large. So I'm taking a distress marker, the fine tip side of a distress marker, So I can just color all around that pupil. That pupil is so big that it doesn't leave a lot of space. So that's why I sometimes use a distress fine tip marker, or any marker that has a super fine tip, rather than a Copic marker that might be, a little out of control. This is a very common style eye as well for the Greeting Farm. It's got the eyelashes right on what looks like the pupil. This is cutesy Anya. And I don't really color up those eyes at all, because if you put a kind of a color ring around those eyes, it sometimes makes them look like they've got black eyes. What I do is I go in with a white jelly roll pen and I just put in highlights, and that seems to help make those eyes pop. This last style eye is just a dot eye, and that's super common as well. These little penguins from Some Odd Girl have that dot eye, and I often don't color up those eyes as well. I'll just add a white gel pen dot for a highlight. But if you do want to add some color to those eyes, I'll show you how I would go about doing it. I would add the iris color around the whole pupil, but then I don't stop there, because that makes the eye look like a black eye. I leave a little space. It's called the sclera, the white portion of the eye. I leave that space, and when I color in the rest of the image, I leave that white space around that eye, that pupil and the iris, so that it looks like the white of the eye is there too. So in this instance, if this was an eye for an owl or something like that, I would color in the fur or the feathers or whatever around that eye, and you can see how that makes it look like the eye is really, alive and popping. The last thing I do is I also try to go in and clean up the black parts of the eyes after coloring in different parts of the eye. Sometimes the black gets a little bit muddy looking. So I do that, and on images where I've created the eye essentially around the pupil, I'll use a black Copic multi-liner pen or a black Uniball pen to color around and define the eye a little bit more. It cleans it up and gives a more defined look. And those are the different styles of eyes that very often find in stamped images, and this is how I color them up. I hope this was helpful to you guys. Now I'll take you back to the skin coloring video.
I'm taking a salty ocean blue distress marker and using the fine tip side to color around the pupil of this sweet little girl from the Greeting Farm. She's another little fairy from the Magical Kit stamp set. I don't know if that's retired. I know occasionally they'll reissue a stamp set like that. So if you're interested, you might check out the Greeting Farm website, or sometimes I think Marker Pop also has those stamp sets. Now I'm taking a 0.03 Copic multi-liner pen and going back over to make sure that the pupils are nice and crisp and black. That just helps define the little girl's eyes. I think reestablishing the black ink on the pupils and on eyelashes and things like that really make the eyes pop and come to life. I'm trying to make sure that I also use this really small point pen so that I can get really fine points on those eyelashes. I think that gives her a nice sassy look. I also went over the eyebrows right there, as you can see, and I decided just for a little extra fun, I'm going to add a couple of lower eyelashes too, just in the outside corners of her eyes. Now I'm warming up my white Stabilo Uniball white gel pen, and I'm going around so that the white parts of her eyes, the sclera, is actually more bright. Some of the skin color had encroached onto the area that I wanted to keep white. It just kind of bled a little bit on the paper. So I wanted to reestablish the bright white of her eyes, and I think that makes the white areas really pop. And then I'm taking my Copic multi-liner pen and just going over those slight little details where the white gel pen went a little too far. And then the last little bit here will be just to reestablish the white highlights in the middle of her pupils. And this is the finished colored image. I hope you enjoyed this process video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys are having a wonderful crafty day.